Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Well, we just got a great call from one of our good friends, Senator Tim Sheehy of the great state of Montana, a good friend of Eric and of mine. We know the senator very, very well. Senator, it's an honor and privilege to have you on Let the Record Show. Thank you for coming off the Senate floor to be on the show with us. To our audience, I just want to say that Tim Sheehy is an American hero, won the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, served in Afghanistan, graduate of the Naval Academy, successful businessman, newly elected to the United States Senate. So, Senator, welcome to Let the Record Show. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Richard and Eric, and thanks for what you're doing, spreading the good word up in New York, because the time to save America is now, and we're working hard to do it every day. Thanks for your support.
Well, we're happy to do that. We're going to have Eric talk to you for a while, then Chairman Garcia will talk to you for a while. Eric.
Well, Senator, welcome to the show. I'm proud to say I was an early and strong supporter of yours going back to the early days of your campaign, and I'm delighted that you are now a sitting senator in the United States Senate. So I guess the first question I have for you is, how you finding the Senate? Is it everything you expected it to be? More, less, about the same?
Well, clearly, we're aligned with an administration that's doing historic things right now, and I don't know what the Senate looks like when we're not in the majority and with a friendly White House. But from what I hear from my colleagues, it's quite a bit less fun when you're trying to slow down bad things than help good things happen. So it's been an exciting first few weeks. And, of course, what the president and his team are doing is historic. I mean, I think we're going to look back on these just few weeks already, and we're not even close to being done. And I think it's going to be some of the most consequential actions taken in the history of our country. And of course, an issue I know is near and dear to your heart, Eric, is Israel, as is mine. It's the first thing I did after I was elected was I got on a plane and went to Israel. I'd been there before as part of my military and business years, but it was important for me to get an update of what's going on the ground there. And as you know, the actions of the president and his team have led to a swift shift in the balance of power there. And of course, bringing the hostages home is his number one priority, and we're seeing that happen as we speak.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you for your support for the American-Israeli relationship. That's very critical. What a lot of our listeners may not know is, some of your deployments were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you brought some souvenirs home with you. I think one of them is still in your leg. It's shrapnel from an Iranian IED, but there's some. So you have a very strong connection to the Iranian regime. And on that note, what do you think should be the next steps the United States should be taking and Israel should be taking vis-a-vis your good friends, the Iranians?
Well, maximum pressure on Iran all the time. There's no question that Iran has been one of our most ardent and aggressive adversaries for 43 years. They've been systematically murdering and killing Americans and, of course, Israelis and through proxy groups as well as themselves. They've been one of our most aggressive adversaries. And the fact that we have seen successive Democrat administrations literally handing them cash, pallets of cash, billions of dollars, to take that money, hand it to proxy groups or to their own IRGC, and then use that money to kill Americans and to kill Israelis is absolutely disgusting, and it's shameful. And it's about time what we're seeing from the President Trump's administration, and of course, but from the rest of the government as well, is a renewed maximum pressure campaign to ensure that we're treating Iran the way they should be treated, which is as a terrorist state. I don't even call them a state sponsor of terror, because that implies that you have some sort of passive government that just lets terror happen. They're not a state sponsor of terror. They are a terrorist regime, and they've done everything they can to wipe off will wipe Israel off the map, and of course every chance they've gotten to destroy free Western values. So maximum pressure from Iran from with regard to economic policy and military policy as well. And we've seen in the Red Sea just recently here, this isn't a regional issue. Shipping to the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, the Straits of Hormuz, those have global implications for everyone on the planet, to include Americans right here in the heartland. And we need to make sure we're dealing with this regime as aggressively as possible.
Senator, I just want to raise one question with you. There's just a report that came out from the Senate Judiciary Committee, which said that there was evidence that the Obama-Kerry regime actually tried to suppress investigations about espionage here in the United States by Iranian officials. What are your thoughts about that?
There's no doubt in my mind that's true. I mean, I think we all kind of accepted that as a matter of principle, but by simply seeing, how the Obama and Biden administrations function with regard to Iran, that there was a very clear sympathy towards the Shia extremist movement and towards the Iranian state. And, some say this goes back to, decades ago with the, kind of the anti-colonial movement, the occupier, occupy, whole construct that we're seeing this Marxist DEI CRT type education system where, they want to delegitimize any sort of Western form of government that's perceived as colonial. And I think for some of them, they see the Ayatollah's regime as the Iranian people seizing their fate again. So in some crazy, weird prism of logic, they're the good guys. And I don't know whether that's how they get there or not, but there's no question that we've seen aiding and abetting of the Iranian regime to, in my opinion, a criminal degree. It's led to dead Americans, dead Israelis, and we need to find out whoever in those administrations was perpetuating those policies and helping the regime and bring them to account. No question.
No, we could talk about Iran forever, and of course, you and I have spoken about our good buddy Robert Malley, who apparently was instrumental in perhaps leaking some intelligence from his phone to the Iranians. But we could talk about that. But I want to just change the topic for a second. Because in addition to your being a war hero, you also have a history of being an entrepreneur. And one of the businesses you've been involved with has included being a firefighting missions across the United States for fighting wildfires. And I know you've been instrumental in sponsoring nearly 10 bipartisan bills aimed at overhauling the federal response to wildfires, in response to the recent events in L.A. and in the Carolinas. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience fighting fires and, what's contained in these pieces of legislation and why you think they're so important?
Well, I mean, wildfires are a core part of life for a lot of us in the Western U.S. And I think as much of New York saw a couple of years ago when Canada was burning, this is an East Coast issue too. And actually, I just got off the Senate floor with Andy Kim of New Jersey, who, although we may not align on a lot of things ideologically, he dealt with some serious fires in New Jersey last fall and recognized that there wasn't a response apparatus in place to appropriately protect his communities. And we decided to partner on a bill to try to address that. And all of the rest of America saw how devastating these wildfires can be. And it's not just that they kill hundreds of people and burn thousands of homes. It's that has a direct inflationary impact because the cost of everything will go up. The cost of homeowners insurance in some cases will go up 100 times based on wildfire risk for people in Western America. And some people won't be able to get homeowners insurance. And if that makes 10 to 20% of the homes in the country illiquid, or homeowners insurance climbs by that much, that's not solely cordoned off to wildfire areas. That has an impact on the rest of the insurance market. That means everybody's insurance goes up. That means everyone's interest rates will go up. So, in a period of time where we're trying to bring interest rates down, bring inflation down, when we have to spend $250 billion, $250 billion, the most expensive disaster in American history, we now have to take unbudgeted cash and shove it out to California to help them recover. Once again, we're printing money. So we can't afford these kind of episodes of government incompetence anymore. We're seeing that, that's the theme right now. And wildfire is it's low-hanging fruit. It's something we can easily address. We can do a much better job to protect our communities. And how I got into wildfire was seeing the close air support model and capabilities we had in Iraq and Afghanistan to support my SEAL teams on the ground. I recognized that our firefighters in America didn't have close to that type of technology helping them. So I started my companies to try to close that gap. And luckily, we were very successful in that regard. It created hundreds of jobs, and I'm trying to bring that same mindset here to fix this problem on a national level.
Okay. I'd like to turn this over to Chairman Garcia. Jesse, the Senator is all yours.
Senator, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you. And it's truly, I want to thank you for your service, not only just in the Navy, but to us as Americans just recently by flipping a state that was held by a Democrat for 3 terms and finally bring some common sense to that office. I see you're a naval veteran and a Navy SEAL that served in Iraq, Afghanistan, South America. I need to ask you a question. Did that properly prepare you for the battles that you're facing in the states in the U.S. Senate with Chuck Schumer? Because the guy's a bit of a jerk, and we could probably use some SEAL veteran help here in New York when he has those stupid Sunday press conferences.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that front. But listen, I think military experience, can help with anything in life. And one of the exciting alliances I think we see coming out in this new Congress is, in the wake of GWAT, we're seeing a lot of young veterans come out and get involved in government. In fact, just this morning I had a great meeting with Seth Moulton from Massachusetts, who, although he's a Democrat, he's a common sense Democrat, former Marine officer, and also veteran of the Iraq War. And those of us who served together, one of the greatest stories in the U.S. Senate was that of, Bob Dole and Daniel Inouye, who were both World War II veterans. They were both wounded together in the same battle, and they were shared hospital beds next to each other for several months in the hospital and became best friends. And although they were on the other sides of the aisle, they were able to work together at key times in American history to craft bipartisan legislation. So I think that same mindset can come to you from the military, where there's a time to fight and there's a time to stand for values. And we can always compromise, and we can compromise on policy, but we don't have to compromise on our values. And things like Israel, things like, bringing the hostages home, defending, the state of Israel, that's not a policy decision that we can compromise on, because that is a fundamental values decision. Keeping boys out of women's sports, that's a fundamental values decision. Tax policy. We want lower taxes, but guess what? That's going to require negotiation and compromise to get to a point where we can pass those kinds of policies. So I think that mindset does help, having been in the military, because you understand what are the things you can accept and compromise on, what are the things you cannot compromise on. And it's very important you figure out what those are and you hold to it.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve. It's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Yeah, you also spoke a lot about reforms, and you said the issues you spoke about just now. And one that maybe is not getting a lot of attention to because of everything going on at the border and the reconciliation bill and so on and so forth is education. How do you see reforming education to put more monies and more resources into the classroom as opposed to administrations and the crazy policies and curriculums that the Department of Education was instilling in our states and our school systems over the last 12 out of the last 16 years?
Nowhere in the U.S. Constitution does it say it's the federal government's responsibility to educate or indoctrinate our children. The Department of Education served a very specific role at a very specific time, which was, the desegregation of schools and ensuring equal access to education. Obviously, it's a runaway train, as much of our federal government has become, and now we're spending billions of dollars in a department that, frankly, isn't worried about education at all. It's worried about printing student loans. It's worried about spreading ideology that parents don't agree with. And I'm of the opinion the Department of Education should go away. There are roles that it fills that can be much more effectively filled by the states, filled by counties, filled by cities. All the money we spend on the bloated federal bureaucracy should be getting piped directly through to state governments, to local governments. And frankly, no one's ever going to take as much care in educating or raising your children as parents are. Parents need to be in the driver's seat of the kids' education. When we see parents being criminalized or being called domestic terrorists for expressing concern over what their children are being taught, that's one of those values decisions that you can't compromise on. So we need to put education back in the hands of the families. That's the way it was for centuries and millennia before we invented this industrialized education model where we farmed out the raising of our children to the state. There is a role for the government to play, but that should be local government, where parents and families have input into what their children are being taught. And at the end of the day, the educators are accountable to the parents for what they're teaching their kids. So, I think it's time. We're seeing a disruptive pattern emerge here where the government is willing to make drastic changes to make our government more accountable and responsive to the people. And education is going to be part of that.
So one of the unfortunate facts of life in education in the United States is that there's a tremendous amount of foreign money that is poured not just into our colleges and universities, but into our K through 12. Qatar is a perfect example of that. There are, where I live up in Westchester County in Newcastle, the Chappaqua School District has a Middle East curriculum that is funded by Qatar and is done in coordination with Brown University, and is taught to our students as to what Middle East history is. And needless to say, it doesn't portray the Israelis in the best light. What, if anything, can the federal government do to put a halt to foreign governments influencing what is being taught to our children?
It's no different than things we have, such as CFIUS, where we have processes where we can detect foreign influence in our country and fight it. And you're exactly right, Eric. When we have foreign governments writing billions of dollars of checks to our schools to shape that education, we need to stop that. And we need to make sure that they are not being given undue influence to shape our education process and mold our curriculum to, as you see, our college campuses. We have college kids in America, and I'd love to know, Eric, how many of those kids are on federally backed student loans, by the way, who are out there protesting the state of Israel, calling for death to the Jews, protesting in favor of Hamas, which is a disgusting, murderous organization. And those people, a lot of that base anti-Semitism is a result of, there's no question about it, foreign influence in our education system. So, we can pass legislation, as we saw, just last year in those fantastic congressional hearings where, the heads of those colleges were asked a very simple question, and they couldn't even answer it with simple moral clarity, the fact that Jews have the right to exist on this planet, for Christ's sake. So we need to fight that tooth and nail. That'll require legislation, and we'll be trying to get that done.
Well, Senator, I want to thank you very much for being on Let the Record Show. On behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, it's an honor and privilege to have you on the show. We look forward to having you back. We wish you every good wish in your Senate career. And I know for the three of us, we're absolutely delighted to have somebody of your quality, ability, and experience sitting in the United States Senate protecting the American people. Thanks again, Senator, for being with us on Let the Record Show.